Yo, what's going on, everybody? GZTV, and wow, I am at a loss of words with this previous Walking Dead episode. Man, what the hell just happened? This was insane. Definitely one of the best episodes of the last couple seasons. I'm not even joking, and I'm not even trying to hype it up. This shit was insane. So let's just get into it. We have the plot, the critic reception. That's gonna be the video. Then I'll go upstairs. I'm gonna go upstairs and watch a Dexter so I can have that for tomorrow. I already listened to the music for this week, with the exception of the Ice Spice Taylor Swift song. I don't know if I'm going to listen to that. I might. I don't know. You never know. I'm going to move my camera over here so we're a little more centered on the screen. So let's get into it. So as the fair at the kingdom begins, Alpha leads an attack on a caravan from the hilltop going to the kingdom. So, she is planning some really big things. These people have wronged her, and they think they can just get away with it. I'm sorry if the GZTV sign's a little fucked up. By the way, there will be a stream today, I think. Maybe not a long one, but definitely a stream. I need to keep my Twitch fans fed as well. So, yeah, we have 23 fans over there, about 146, 147 over here. So, shout out to every last one of you for watching the videos. Daryl and Michonne arrive with Judith, Henry, Lydia, and Connie, reuniting with Carol and Ezekiel, and everybody's just kind of coming together for this fair, and it's a really big event. Michonne brings all the leaders from the communities together to apologize for Alexandria foregoing its relationships, to announce that Alexandria will give asylum to Lydia, and to establish a mutual protection pact, knowing that Alpha will likely retaliate. And they don't realize that Alpha is going to retaliate this soon, but she sure as hell does, and it is one of the craziest things. This is beyond what Negan did. I mean, holy shit, this was insane. To affirm the pact, Ezekiel has the community sign Michonne's charter and then starts arranging for a small combined force to travel to the hilltop to make sure it is secure from an attack by the Whisperers, because they are definitely anticipating that really soon. But the attack isn't going to be on Hilltop. It's going to be where everyone is at, and obviously that is a smart tactic on Alpha's part to kind of scout it out and follow people over here. As the fair continues, Alpha poses as one of the Alexandria fairgoers from the caravan and gathers information about everything, where's this at, what's happening here, so she can catch people at their bad spots and carry out her plan, and it is maniacal. So, earlier that day, Daryl's small force leaves for the hilltop and meets up with the highwaymen and Rouge, the protectors, pretty much, keeping the roads clear of walkers and the Whisperers. The highwaymen point them to the group of hilltop residents that were killed by Alpha. The group decides to split up to look for any survivors. That night, Daryl, Michonne, Carol, and Yumiko are attacked by walkers and take them out one by one until the Whisperers surround them. Yeah, this plan is really coming into fruition. People are trapped in the woods and stuff. Beta emerges from the trees and tells them to drop their weapons, saying, "You just had to give me the girl, but that the deal is now off." And yeah, Daryl is obviously standing there shocked because he thought he pushed this guy down the elevator shaft and killed him, but nope, he is still alive. That night, as most of the fairgoers gather for the film, Lydia is saving a seat for Henry when Alpha sits next to her and gestures for her to stay quiet. Now, I'm not sure right away if Lydia recognizes this as her mother. She probably does. She's heard this voice all her life. So, outside the theater, Alpha tries to convince Lydia to come with her, but Lydia rejects her, and Alpha says, that's fine, But, when the consequences come, they will come, Alpha tells her she is not strong, is no longer part of her group, and departs. She understands that now. You can't be out in the wild. You have to be with this civilization because you're not able to survive with us out here. Lydia is fine with that until she gets the news later on in the episode, and we'll get to that. Later, at the Whisperer's new camp, Alpha, now out of disguise, joins her people and approaches Daryl and company, who are captive. She's a really busy woman this episode because she has to tend to different sectors and has to carry out her plan to make sure things go well. After announcing that her daughter is no longer a concern, Alpha tells Daryl to come with her alone. Oh my god, man. Oof. And what Daryl is about to see. At dawn, Alpha forces Daryl at gunpoint to the top of a cliff, where a gargantuan horde of walkers and whisperers walk beneath them. She, shows him the horde and, this big old, opening. And I think this might have been the quarry. I don't know if this is the same place. She tells him that his friends at the camp are fine, and that she has marked off a line, which is the extent of Whisperer lands. But the next time his people cross into their lands, she'll release the horde onto theirs, and it's gonna get pretty damn ugly. Daryl asks if she killed Lydia, and Alpha tells him that she didn't kill her, but doubts that Daryl can protect her, and she's not lying about that, He's not even gonna see the full extent of the situation just yet. He tells her that she's wrong and leaves to reunite with his friends. Back in her camp, Alpha, in private, begins to cry over the loss of her daughter. She, really wanted her to be a part of the group, but she has to act. She has to have this act going. Oh, you're not tough enough. That's fine. She has to act like everything's fine. However, when a Whisperer accidentally witnesses this, Alpha kills him to make sure no one ever sees her being weak. She doesn't want to be weak. That's not the point of the Whisperers. She might as well be dead if anyone sees her weak. They might as well be dead anyway. As Daryl's group works their way back to the kingdom, they find a beaten and bloody Sadiq tied to a tree, obviously having been affected by Whisperers. Sadiq is untied and points them to a nearby hill, and oh my goodness. To their horror, they find a line of 10 decapitated heads on pikes, and they instantly are able to identify them. There's Ozzy, Alec, DJ, Frankie, Tammy Rose, Rodney, Addie, Enid, Tara, and Henry. This is meant to signify Alpha's territorial boundary, and they've crossed the line one too many times. Later in the kingdom, Sadiq addresses the community to deliver the tragic news, because obviously people are going to realize this very fucking soon. And I'm kind of grazing over this, but this was one of the craziest things I've ever seen this show pull off. He explains how they were taken by the Whisperers and that Alpha left him alive to tell a story of what happened and to drive the communities apart again, and they're not going to let that affect them. They're not going to let the deaths of these people affect them, and matter of fact, they're going to let this motivate them. Instead, Sadiq tells a different story. Before the end, the prisoners were found by Ozzy, Alec, and DJ, who gave them the chance to fight back. I don't know if this is what actually happened, but yeah, the prisoners fought to the end, protecting each other like family, even though some of them didn't even know each other, and taking down several Whisperers. So they still made a gash in the other group, but obviously they didn't make it. Though they failed in the end, they died as heroes, which is how Sadiq wants them to be remembered and honored. Sometime later, Daryl and Lydia return to the border. Lydia leaves the necklace Henry made for her on the ground by the pike that once held Henry's head, kind of as a memoriam. She'll never forget him for pretty much saving her. As the two walk away, snow flurries begin to fall, and it's going to be a very, very cold winter, as Alpha kind of alluded to as she was walking through the fair. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how winter affects everyone. And yeah, we have a lot to talk about. This is going to be a long review here. I mean, this was a very popular episode, obviously, for what happened. 91%, 8.6 out of 10, 22 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. The calm before exemplifies everything that The Walking Dead does best, bittersweetly affirming the bonds of a makeshift community and finding glimmers of humanity in a nihilistic landscape, before dropping a horrifying twist that will leave viewers reeling long after. The brutal ending, I mean, my goodness. I'm pretty sure I've said more than once that Enid and Tara need to go, and now they have. I feel a tiny bit bad about it now, but only a tiny bit. The cast has become far too unwieldy, even with a bunch of character deaths, and there's way too many characters to focus on, and I feel like this served as a purpose, to get rid of some of the characters. I know that's kind of fucked up, but yeah. The Walking Dead rarely deals in taut emotions, preferring to manipulate with big pushes and pokes. The Calm Before has that in spades, but the creative team is able to dial it back, sprinkling moments of hopefulness in front of Alpha. Unlike Lydia, who is taken taken in by it, she's repulsed, and while it doesn't show on her face, it shows in her actions and her talk with Daryl at shotgun point. The very same incidents strike two related people totally differently, and in the denouement of the episode, the very things that lend sweetness and happiness end up causing the greatest and bittersweet pain. I got a B- on IndieWire. The decapitation border is a big moment from the comics, which I didn't realize at first, which I obviously haven't read. Apparently, the victim lineup was quite different, but such changes are par for the course at this point. It's interesting that the show feels compelled to stick with those big events, but is perfectly content to change the characters. Doesn't matter whose heads are on those sticks, as long as there are some heads on sticks. The reveals of the victims, which oblivious people at the fair wondering about the whereabouts of each character, was particularly effective. Alden scanning the crowd for Enid as he performs his number with Luke was probably the most devastating, because they just kind of started their relationship officially, and it's really fucked up. A- in the AV Club. At best, the calm before could be a memorial for what this show has been as it heads towards a new future, a reminder of what it used to look like during its strongest seasons, before reshuffling the undead chessboard of its major players and changing up the nature of the structure and stories. Warning signs showed this was possible, and the Whisperers are an ideal foil by which to engage in some ambitious new ways of dealing with these characters and communities as they enter a new era of existence. True, this show hasn't demonstrated anything like the kind of consistency that would point to such a maneuver, continuing its uneven mix of soap opera melodrama and intriguing experiments and post-apocalyptic thrills is the likely progression. But as we close the book on Season 9 and look at the show's 10th year, this was an excellent reminder of what got us all tuning in the first place. And yeah, that's all I gotta